Hello there. I'm going to tell a little story about the time Princess Anne came to the council estate that I live on, and it's actually quite funny to me. So at the time I was on the tenants and residents group, and we got told that she was coming to put one of those time capsules in the ground near a newly renovated block of flats. So this is a council estate, and at the time I think there were 5 blocks of flats, all 15 floors high, and the council had done a renovation programme on the estate, and so to celebrate that they invited her, and all she had to do was basically do a little 2-minute speech near this box, and then they lowered it into the ground. So 2 months leading up to this event, you've never seen the council work so hard. I'm not even joking. So you know what a council estate's like. So you've got your burnt out cars behind the shops that have been twocked, as we called it, which means stolen without consent and burnt out. So you always had something like that behind the back of the shop. You had beaten up mattresses in front gardens, sheds made out of rickety old doors, and rubbish strewn everywhere. And not everybody looked after the garden and the house. So even though there were some beautiful parts of the estate and some lovely houses and gardens, not everyone's like everybody else. So some of them were really scruffy. So what the council did is this massive campaign. So in the months leading up to this royal visit, they went round and they got rid of all the scrap. They cleaned everybody's gardens. People who didn't do their own gardens got their lawns cut for free. And it was a massive clean-up campaign. When they'd finished, it felt really nice on the estate. It's like people went into a state of shock, because it was this feeling of this is what it could be like all the time if people cared. If everybody had the same attitude and looked after what they owned and what they had, the place would have felt lovely, and it did feel lovely. So 2 months, nice clean estate, people in high spirits, not because of the royal visit, but because the place felt nice. Now, anybody who does anything like witchcraft, magic, all that sort of stuff will tell you that the spring clean is a psychological magic spell. Because when you go through your house and sweep through it and get rid of all the rubbish and do a right good clean up, it makes you feel good. It's like a new start. And that's how it felt on the estate. In the meantime, the children in the local junior and infant school were told there's a princess coming. But they didn't explain to these children what a princess actually looked like. So they conjured up an image of Walt Disney princess. And one of the things that they asked them to do is draw pictures of the princess. So when she came to the school, they were going to line all the children up down the corridor. So as Princess Anne walked down the corridor, they were all to hold their pictures up of her and then bow and curtsy. My daughter at the time, I can't remember how old she was. She was about 9 or 10 years old. And she got all excited. She was getting to a point where she felt sick. And she said, "Mom, I can't wait to see the princess. I can't wait. So the day came. And you've never seen anything like it. All the buses stopped and everything. There was no traffic allowed in the estate. And this massive entourage comes. I can't even remember how many vehicles there were, but there were loads of like Black Mariahs, police, high security, and then the Princess Royal in near the back end of the procession. So along it comes down the top road into the estate, and I'm stood on the outsides of the boundary of where the flat was, where she was going, because I didn't want any dealings with her, because I'm not a royalist and I don't bow to no one. I don't care who you are. I do not do any kind of worship to nobody, living or dead. And so this procession comes down the road and everybody stood there all serious with the best clothes on, and I just wore my jeans and t-shirt, and I was stood there with my pram. In fact, Now I'm thinking of it, my youngest son was in the pram, so he was less than a year old, so my daughter would have been about 5 or 6, not older, so she was 5 or 6. So she'd gone to school and they were waiting for the royal visit there. I'm stood near the flats waiting for everything to happen, and with my friends, and we were laughing because we're saying, all this for one woman, all this effort for one woman who's just going to walk in and walk straight back out. And I remember having the conversation with my friends saying, it's funny, isn't it, how the royals have got this perception of us that's not even real. Do they know what actual real poverty is? Because they get it sanitised from them. If they'd have come when it was real and authentic, with people walking through the streets drunk and beating up mattresses in the garden, if she'd have seen it as we lived in it, then she would have seen a different perspective. But what they do when there's a royal visit is they sanitise everything, and they get rid of the lowest forms of people, so they only invite certain types. And that's what I don't like, because they're not given the truth about us either. So there's lies on both sides. But we were laughing because it was like, look at them all, fawning, or all practising the curtsying, and these are all people signing on benefits or minimum wage jobs, fawning over somebody who never has to work, because you can't call that a job. And I don't care what you say, if you're a royalist, I feel sorry for you, because what do they actually do? And what do they represent? And I know I've had this argument many a times with people, and they go, but they bring money into the country. They also take it all from us. But let's not get political, right? All I'm saying is we were stood there laughing, and I went, you can guarantee as soon as she swans back off the estate, it will go back to the cruddle that it was. And that was right. That I was right about that. But anyway, she went to the school first, and then they came down. And all she did is walk around all these people who were stood in a semicircle, and they were all curtsying and bowing, and I'm like, oh, it made me cringe, because it's just a woman, to me, just a woman. And I thought, she's wearing an outfit that probably costs more than my house, and the jewellery is worth more than my life. Why we're bowing to people like this? She's got no concept of poverty and what real life is for real people, and we are the majority. But anyway, politics aside yet again, we were just stood there laughing at everybody fawning over them, and one of the ladies, she was a big girl, and she tried to get down, she was virtually on her knees bowing, and I thought, it was only the other day you said you had a bad back and you couldn't move, but now you're virtually licking ground. So I was just laughing. So anyway, off they went. And then later on, my daughter comes home from school, and she just walked into the door and burst into tears. And I said, what's wrong? And she went, oh, absolutely devastated. So I said, tell me what happened. And she said, we got told a princess was coming. Well, of course, at that age, their idea of a princess is a young, slim woman who looks about 20 with a long bodice dress and a crown. And when Princess Anne came, she was wearing a skirt suit and pearls. And they were so disappointed. All the girls burst into tears. They were all absolutely devastated, because they said, that is not a princess. She walked straight down the corridor past all the children and didn't even acknowledge them, which broke their hearts even more. She didn't even say hello to any of the teachers, apart from the headmaster and maybe one or two. So everyone was absolutely my daughter was decimated. She came home and tore a picture up in front of me and said, I don't like princesses. So I tried to explain what real life is versus Walt Disney. You know, a real princess is a woman, and they grow old. They don't all stay young, and they wear what you'd call normal clothes as well. They don't dress like that unless it's a wedding. But she couldn't cope. She was absolutely devastated, and she said, I'll never ever speak to Princess Anne again. As soon as it was all done with, it was like a massive anticlimax. Everybody's spirits just went flat back down onto the ground. The estate went back to the mattresses in the garden, the burnt out cars, still beautiful patches, but back to that as well. And there you go. And that is my that was one of the dealings I had, if you like. That was the closest I came to meeting a royal, and it was the closest I wanted to go, because I don't like sucking up to people, and I don't do kiss up. And the other one I told you about in another video was when I think this was Princess Margaret came to the Calderdale Hospital in Halifax, and again they brought in lots of cleaning teams from other hospitals to scrub the hospital within an inch of its life, and it stunk like an hospital, like clean, and it was spotless. They gave everybody new uniforms, they told everyone to line up down the corridor. I said I am bowing to no one, so I got a day off paid because I don't want to do it. And again, as soon as the visit was over, the hospital went back to substandards. And this is what happens. And it's quite funny, isn't it? Because you think you've got two sides of a spectrum here. You've got the working class and you've got the mega rich there. And never the twain shall meet. We can't come even close to each other because we're just poles apart. But these people have no concept of real people down here. They know what poverty is, obviously, but they don't have to experience it in any way, shape or form. They don't even have to see it, because everything is sanitised for them to such a degree that what we called a posh council estate when she came, because they painted the houses and everything, they went all out, they put a lot of money into that, and they made it feel as it should be all the time, which is cared for and tended to, and people's spirits went up. But as soon as they leave, back down it goes to poverty again. But you're not showing those royals the real world either. You're just not giving them any concept of what the real world is for real people. And that's why I don't have any thing for it, for royals. I just don't. I just can't. I can't compute with people who are that rich because they don't see real life. And I kind of... This is controversial saying this because I am not in any way a royalist, but part of me feels sorry for them as well, because they never know what it is to really suffer. They don't actually know what it's like to be real, because they're protected from everything, from real life. During wars, during conflict, during any kind of crisis, they're protected so heavily that they don't experience it in the way we do. And so I can't sort of get on the same level with them, and that's why I just cannot get on my knees to them. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there because that is controversial. Somebody made a comment on my video last time, and it was basically saying you can't speak the truth on this platform because if you do, you get demonetised. Now, what I've never told anybody, I don't think, is that I did have another channel on here, and it was only a small one, and I'd only been on it for about 6 weeks, and I got a strike because I mentioned the C word, the CO word, the one that we went through for 4 years. That's why I don't mention that word. And I got a strike against it because I mentioned that and the you know what's. And it said if you get one more strike, you won't even get monetised. And I thought, well, what's the point of having a platform if you can't say what you want? So this channel is sanitised in the same way that the royals' life is sanitised, so they don't see what we really have to live like. I don't say everything on here either for the same reason, because I'm trying to get monetised to get myself out of being poor so I can go and get my land and help people, so I have to watch how I get there. And if that means I've got to keep my channel quite lame, then that's how I have to do it. If you knew me as a person in real life and we were sat alone, we'd go right down the rabbit hole and it would be really intense conversation and we'd be putting the world to rights. But you can't do it on here anymore. And I've known a few channels over the years that have been taken down because they were saying too much, and And I thought, it's just sad, isn't it? And they've gone to other places. In fact, I think I went on another platform, and what was it called now? Daily Motion, I think it was called. And I don't go on it. I think I've got one video there, and then I got bored. But I'm going to go, because I'm going to go